Hello, I'm Claire. I am waiting for my NHS Right to Choose autistic assessment. I've been put with clinical partners. I'm doing this video just to give a bit of insight about the before, during, and after, I guess. I haven't really researched what it was about. I'm a bit of a one for F around and find out, I suppose. Let's just see what happens. And I'm not massively invested in this process, so that may be something about my avoidant process. So I'm in a South Yorkshire trust. I went to the GP in February about something unrelated, and while I was there, I said, "What what needs to happen? What do I need to do for an autism assessment?" I'm pretty sure they asked me why I was seeking that, and I'm fairly confident what I've been researching autism, comparing it to me and my experience since lockdown properly. And I have been comfortable describing myself as autistic for about 2 years. So in those initial 2 years from lockdown to 2022, that was trying on, I guess, becoming more aware of what's out there. Like Instagram has been a great resource for me, like a lot of carousels and infographics and things like that. Also, people's videos and things, and just like, oh, that's a thing. Oh, that's autism. Oh, that's autism. Okay. Because I suppose initially in those 2 years, there was a bit of, well, what if it's trauma, attachment trauma, developmental trauma, which I've no doubt is a part of my makeup. And I suppose you hear it a lot, don't you? Like there's imposter syndrome. Or what if I'm not autistic? What if I'm just really messed up? There's definitely a part of that, and I still have a bit of that now. Finally decided that I was going to seek a diagnosis, a medical diagnosis, formal diagnosis. The way that I justified it to myself is that I'm currently self-employed, but if I ever did go into employment and if I ever go back into education, which is more likely, currently there feels a barrier to getting any kind of adjustments unless you've got a piece of paper that says you are allowed to have adjustments. I went to a talk at the weekend, which was interesting in the perspective that all adjustments should just be available for everybody. Then everybody can choose which way they learn, how to adapt to their space and their environment, and everybody be a bit more comfortable. And if people that don't have diagnoses benefit from having those adjustments, then great. It was a real turning point in my head. It was actually a guy called Toomey. I will link somewhere. He's known for raising awareness of dyspraxia. It was a whole neurodivergence talk. Anyway, I digress. What I'm doing today is telling you a little bit about my process that's got me to this. I think I'm a week and a half before my first assessment, which is up to 90 minutes and is done one-to-one, me and another person over Zoom. So how I've got to this point, as I say, February, I went to the GP for an unrelated matter, asked about assessment. They said, "Oh, what do you want that for?" So I said about reasonable adjustments, and they asked me for a few things like, "Why do you think that it is autism?" And I don't remember fully everything that I said, but it wasn't very much. And what she said to me was, "I'm going to send you a link by text. You click on that and then fill in like the symptoms, the things you experience." I was like, "Okay, cool." And that was the conversation done. So that text was sent, and it was character limited. I don't know how many characters, but there was a point where I was like, "Oh, it's not typing anymore." I made it make sense, made the last sentence make sense, and sent it off. And then I've not heard anything since. I visited the GP a couple of times as a follow up for what I was originally there for, and I asked about it because you hear different stories about different processes, and some people say they get letters sent and there are forms to fill in. Some people obviously never hear anything and they get knocked off waiting lists, or they were never put on, and all sorts of ridiculous things. So I asked a couple of times, I think in the summer, maybe April, May, June, I'm not sure. They just said like the little moving around the mouse on the screen. Yeah, if you not sure here. So if you just send a request via the portal and they'll look into it. So I procrastinated for a long time, got my busy summer out of the way, sent an email through the portal because we'd received text messages to say don't phone up, they're too busy. Just a general, all patients don't phone us unless it's an emergency. I sent a message saying, "Hey, I did a referral in February, I've not heard anything, just wondered what's happening." And the same day somebody from clinical partners rang me to make that initial assessment. That isn't what I was expecting. That was in September. So that's 7 months from the initial appointment where I'd raised it. I guess I was expecting the GP to get back to me and say, or the surgery at least get back to me and say something about what was happening or they'll be in touch or whatever. They actually did do that a week later. Somebody sent a text saying, if you chose a company, get in touch with them, they'll have the details. And I'm like, what? I didn't choose anybody. I have no knowledge about the process. Somebody at one point mentioned right to choose. I don't know who that was. It might have been a nurse in a follow-up appointment, but I don't really know what that means. I now know it means you have the right to choose which private company that the NHS is paying to do your assessment. But I didn't know that. I have been given clinical partners. I'm not researching to find anything out about them. I'm just going to go with it because so far my experience has been positive. My experience with clinical partners is they rang me when presumably the GP chased them up. They sent me an email to say, we're trying to call you, let us know sometimes. So I had a little bit of backwards and forwards, and I finally spoke to them a couple of weeks ago, and it was a really lovely call. I didn't realize that that phone call that we were having was going to be the initial get the ball rolling, and it was about 20 minutes. It was really good though. She explained the process really clearly, like this space is set up for autistic people who will have questions, but they probably won't ask the questions because we shouldn't ask questions. Can't you just do it? No, they answer the questions before you even formed them, and I didn't form many because it was a bit of a shock. Okay, I've got my notes that I made. She explained things really clearly. I didn't ask for there's some little acronyms. I don't know. I think she did say what they stood for, but I didn't write that down. So I've written some notes as she was just explaining to me what the process was. This phone call was to arrange the dates of both assessments, there's two assessments. As it was, I couldn't arrange them both at the same time, so I'll get to that. But yeah, she explained that's what the purpose of the call was, to ask if I needed any adjustments to help when during that call or during any of the assessments. I couldn't think of any that I would need. I work online anyway. I couldn't imagine that there was anything that I would need to make having a long Zoom call any more comfortable, other than breaks, which is kind of standard. So the notes that I wrote, she says there'll be two appointments. There's the ADOS, excuse me, which is up to 90 minutes. It's activity-based relationships and events. There's a word here that I can't read, so I don't know what that is, but that's activity-based relationships. And then there's the ADIR, which can be up to 3 hours. Usually this is done with a family member, somebody that knows you really well, that knew you when you were a child. I do not have a family member that really knows me very well that would adequately report my challenges. So my best friend of 12 years is going to be doing that for me. She's called an informant. So if you don't have a family member, somebody that's known you for a really long time can also be your informant. So this second assessment, the ADIR, is done with a different clinician. So they've got different people with different perspectives, I guess. And then after that, there will be a feedback call, which should be less than 30 minutes. They will give recommendations. As we know, there are not many recommendations to recommend because we're just out here on our own or together. We're finding our way, huh? And then it's 4 to 6 weeks for the report, like a typed report is sent out. I made my first appointment then, and it's coming up next week. And then because I have, well, I suppose it doesn't matter whether it's a family member or a friend or whoever it is that you're choosing. We're doing that session together. No, it does make a difference. So, apologies. If it's a family member and they knew you as a child, then that second assessment could be done between the clinician and that family member, and you wouldn't be involved. The reason that I'm involved in this second one is because my friend doesn't know my childhood. We've known each other since I was 30. So yeah, some of the questions they'll ask, I will need to fill in the gaps, is what the person on the phone said. That could have been booked a little closer, to be honest, but life means that that's not happening until November. I think that'll be nice for me to have a space in between to come down from it, I guess. This actually is creating a bit of turmoil in me, and I still hold small fear that they're going to say, no, you're not autistic. We think it's this, this, and this, and you should go and seek this, this, and this treatment. I'd say there's only 5% of me that is fearful of that, but it's a really strong fear. Every day, I receive evidence back from the world that this is autism, and that is what's making this hard, not because I find other things challenging. Anyway, I'm rambling. So that's how I got to be at this point. Okay, they sent me 4 emails. The first one was while I was on the phone, and it was to confirm my email address. So that was just an in the moment one. They also sent important information about your appointment. Welcome to the Clinical Partners portal, and please complete your pre-appointment questionnaire. There are questionnaires that need to be done before meeting. That's what I'm going to talk about today. I know I've been rambling for a while. I hope you're still with me. My informant also has a part to fill in. So going into the portal is pretty easy. So you follow a link to the portal. You'll complete your registration, so you put in your own password. So obviously you'll set that up the first time. For me, all of the forms were already there and ready, and I've already done the first assessment. There's like a little online sometimes, never, always kind of thing. I think it only had 3 or 4 pages. It wasn't a long one. If you've done any of the AQ tests online, it wasn't as comprehensive as them. And it was social / relationship based questions that I can tolerate busy environments, that kind of thing. Sometimes, always, never. So I've already done that one. So they've got the appointments here on this portal. You've got outstanding questionnaires. So clicking on the questionnaires, like I say, I've already done the first one, which that's completed, pending. There's one for me, and then there's one for the informant. I need to send a link for that one to my friend for them to do. If I go into this one, this is the bigger essay-based questions. I think maximum 4,096. I don't know if that's characters or words. So these are the questions, and I just wanted to tell you what they are because I had a quick read through them. Obviously, they're longer form, but I also find them hard. What are the difficulties that you're facing that you want the doctor to understand? I don't know if I want the doctor to understand any of the difficulties that I'm currently facing. So I find that a hard question already to grasp what I'm supposed to write. I suppose I could, as I reread that in my head, I'm thinking, what do I want anyone to understand? How do I want the people that don't see me struggling to know about how I struggle? So I think that's how I will answer that question. What are you hoping to get from the appointments? Very simply, a diagnosis. That means if I ever need to ask an organization for reasonable adjustments, I can wave my piece of paper and legitimize my request. Can you please tell us about your immediate family? What do you want to know about them? It's it's such an open question. What does this have to do with this? Yeah, that one stumps me. Like, am I just supposed to list the people, where they live, how old they are, what they do for a living? I'm going to struggle with that one, I think. Can you please tell us any things you feel are important for the doctor to know about your family background? I don't believe there's anything that it's important for the doctor to know about my family background, but that makes me think I'm missing a point somewhere. Closest others, significant health problems, separation, loss, stresses. I suppose that's asking about trauma, significant losses, health problems. Can you tell us briefly about any events in your life that have been the most significant to you that might be relevant to the issues you are seeking help with? I don't know what that means. Daily life, school, employment, relationships. Tell us briefly about events in your life that have been the most significant to you. Now, I can talk about events that have been significant to me. I don't know how relevant they are to the issues that I'm seeking help. And I'm not seeking help with any issues because I know there isn't any help for me in my position. I don't believe there's any help. I can seek help. I can seek relational support. I can seek therapeutic support. I'm not seeking that from the NHS. Obviously, it's classic overthinking, and I'm paralyzed with I don't know what I'm supposed to write here. So I'm making this video explaining this process and showing a little bit of me struggling with this because I feel like my mission in life is to show it's not just you. I think I know it's not just me. And yet, right now, well, thousands of people must have been able to answer these questions before. So why am I finding it so difficult? Why am I thinking this and thinking that and blah, blah, blah. So yeah, I'm making this so that people can see what the clinical partners way is. Oh yes. And so for the informant questionnaire, I don't have access to that. I've had an email sent to me that is for me to send to the informant for them to log into my system, fill in my questionnaire. Yeah, so they've sent me, the email says important information about your appointment, and they send me a link so that I can send it to my informant for them to fill in. I'm not going to log into the informant one because that's for them to fill in. Perhaps I'll find out some information about that at another point. In conclusion, TLDR, Clinical Partners is the company that I did not choose. It has been chosen for me. I'm okay with that. I've not done any research around them. There's nothing flagging up in my head about anything that I've heard about them. If I were to be researching them, there are some groups on Facebook that I'm a member of where a lot of people have gone through various pathways and with different companies with varying degrees of comfort and satisfaction. Like I said, I'm not going to research them. I'm happy with the contact that I've had so far. I don't know anything about any other companies that I might rather do it with. And they're so thorough on the phone, so friendly, considered. It makes me feel comfortable that hopefully all of the members of staff for Clinical Partners are as open and gentle and explain things well. If not, you'll hear it here first. From my initial GP visit in February, I made the appointments in September. I got my first assessment in October. The second one is with my informant because they're not a family member that knows about my childhood. That one's in November, so I should know by the end of the year whether I am officially autistic, because I am actually autistic. I don't think that there would be much that goes on if they did say no, actually we think it's CPTSD or something. But I also know that the anticipation of something, no matter how well informed, still does not fully prepare you for the actuality of it. So I'm reserving a little of something to say right now I feel good. I'm a little apprehensive, I guess, about next week. As a therapist that works on Zoom, there's a very different position when the roles are reversed. And so I'm kind of alert to that. But I think just being open, authentic, try not to overthink things too much, and also to give myself permission to get clarity, which is something that I've struggled to allow myself to do for a lot of my life. And even now, sometimes I can read a situation, rightly or wrongly, that it's not okay to keep asking questions and just get on with it. In this instance, when I'm being assessed, I'm going to be as authentic, open, congruent, and just in the moment with my experiencing as I can be. Hopefully that will, yeah, I don't know, overthinking, over talking. So yeah, if I think of anything else before I've finished editing this video, I will tack it on to the end. And my next video to do with Clinical Partners will be me in the assessment. I'm going to film me doing it. I think it's going to be a great record for me to hear the questions, hear my answers. And so I will do a debrief once it's finished. Let you know how that goes. And then there'll be a third one in November. I don't think you need to know what's coming, do you? That's the end of this one. Thanks for watching. If you do have any questions about my experience, the process, like I said, I haven't researched any of the other companies, so I can't tell you anything about that. I can only tell you about my experience with Clinical Partners and autism. Ask me whatever questions you want about autism. I'm not an expert, but I do know what it's like for me.